is supposed to be the one place in the world where we are in total control. It is our ultimate sanctuary. When we turn the deadbolt at night and pull the curtain shut, we are creating a physical and psychological barrier between ourselves and the unpredictable dangers of the outside world. We convince ourselves that as long as the doors are locked, nothing can hurt us. But sometimes that profound sense of security is nothing more than a fragile illusion. Today we are looking at chilling, documented true events where home security cameras did not just capture a routine crime. They exposed the wandering dread, the calculated stalking, and the pure, unadulterated malice that usually stays completely hidden in the dead of night. These are the moments when the monsters didn't stay under the bed. They walked right up to the front door. In 2015, a couple living in a quiet, unassuming neighborhood in San Jose, California, had their peace of mind permanently shattered. They had survived a terrifying, chaotic home invasion earlier that year. The suspects had vanished into the night before the police could arrive, leaving the traumatized family with a lingering, suffocating paranoia. Desperate to reclaim their sanctuary, they followed the advice of local detectives and completely fortified their property. They installed 6 high-definition infrared security cameras covering every single angle, entryway, and blind spot. Just a few months later, on the night of May 8th, the cameras shifted into night vision mode, painting the quiet property in eerie shades of monochrome gray. Out of the deep shadows, 2 figures emerged. They were dressed entirely in black, moving with a terrifying, practiced silence. They scaled the backyard fence with ease, dropping onto the grass without making a sound. After checking the perimeter, they found a single sliding glass door that had been accidentally left unlocked, a simple, everyday human error. They slid the glass open and stepped into the pitch-black kitchen. This was not a frantic, disorganized robbery. It was cold and methodical. One of the intruders immediately walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up the landline phone, and ripped the cord from the wall, intentionally severing the home's immediate lifeline to the outside world. Then they began quietly opening drawers, searching until their hands closed around what they were looking for: heavy, razor-sharp kitchen knives. They had arrived unarmed, choosing instead to arm themselves with the homeowner's own tools. The security footage then captures them creeping slowly up the main staircase, their blades glinting faintly in the ambient light. In the upstairs hallway, one of the intruders stopped dead in his tracks in front of the locked master bedroom door. He leaned forward, pressing his ear flat against the heavy wood. Inside the room, he heard a fragile, muffled sound. It was a crying baby. Rosie, a close family friend who was babysitting the infant that night, had heard the muffled footsteps downstairs. Realizing they were not alone, she had grabbed the baby, locked the bedroom door, and hidden in the dark, praying the intruders would just take what they wanted and leave. But when the men heard the baby, their demeanor violently shifted. Instead of fleeing to avoid a confrontation, their fear turned to aggressive rage. They stepped back and began violently kicking the bedroom door. The heavy thuds echoed through the quiet house as they battered the wood until it finally splintered and cracked open. Through the gaping hole, the men violently thrust their long kitchen knives, stabbing blindly and aggressively into the dark room, trying to strike whoever was inside. Trapped in a living nightmare, Rosie grabbed the infant, retreated further into the attached master bathroom, and locked that door as well. Backed into a corner with no other options, she screamed at the top of her lungs, projecting her voice through the shattered wood. "I have called the police. They are on their way right now." The sudden threat of sirens and flashing blue lights finally broke their terrifying resolve. The intruders turned and sprinted down the stairs, fleeing out into the night. The men were never identified, and their true motive remains a horrifying mystery. They deliberately cut the phones, armed themselves, and actively tried to attack a locked room containing a babysitter and a child. They didn't just want to rob the place, they wanted what was inside. The sprawling suburbs of Vacaville, California are generally known for their peaceful, family-friendly atmosphere. It is the kind of place where parents trust that their children can safely walk home from school. But predators do not always hide in the dark, waiting for the sun to go down. Sometimes they operate in broad daylight, hiding in plain sight. On an ordinary, bright April afternoon, a young schoolgirl was walking home alone. Her heavy backpack was slung over her shoulders and her pace was casual. She was completely unaware that a dark-colored Pontiac sedan had locked onto her. The car was moving at a crawl, maintaining a very specific, deliberate distance behind her as she navigated the suburban sidewalks. But this young girl possessed an incredible sense of situational awareness. She didn't have headphones in. She wasn't staring down at a smartphone. She noticed the dark vehicle. She noticed that every time she adjusted her speed, the car adjusted to match it. Realizing she was being actively hunted, panic began to set in. But instead of running blindly, she made a brilliant tactical decision. Up ahead, parked on the side of the residential street, sat a massive, heavy-duty pickup truck. As she approached it, she kept her eyes on the approaching Pontiac. The second she stepped behind the bulk of the truck, completely obscuring herself from the driver's line of sight, she abruptly stopped walking. She froze in place, pressing her back against the metal. The security camera mounted on a nearby house captured the entire terrifying game of cat and mouse. The Pontiac pulled up slowly, the driver expecting the young girl to emerge from the front of the parked truck. When she didn't appear, the brake lights illuminated. The car stalled right in the middle of the road. The driver sat there, idling his engine, staring at the empty sidewalk, waiting for his target to reveal herself. Behind the truck, the girl held her breath, refusing to move a single inch, eventually realizing that sitting stationary in the middle of the street was drawing unwanted attention. The driver hit the gas and drove off, but the girl's intuition told her to stay put. Her hesitation saved her life. Moments later, the camera captures the dark Pontiac, circling back around for a second pass. The driver shifted his car into reverse, slowly backing up parallel to the truck, desperately trying to get an angle to see behind it. As he reversed, the girl executed a flawless maneuver. She slowly and silently circled the body of the truck, moving in tandem with the reversing car, ensuring that the massive vehicle stayed exactly between her and the driver's window at all times. She became a ghost. Frustrated, angry, and outsmarted, the man finally slammed on the gas and sped out of the neighborhood. The second the coast was clear, the girl broke into a full sprint and made it safely home. Police quickly used the footage to identify the 24-year-old driver. However, the dark reality of the legal system intervened. Because he hadn't spoken a threat or stepped out of his vehicle, he hadn't technically committed a defined crime, and he could not be arrested. If that young girl hadn't used that truck as a shield, the outcome of that sunny afternoon could have been unspeakably tragic. In the world of personal security, a person is never more vulnerable than during a state of transition. It is the exact moment you turn off your car engine, gather your belongings, and walk the few short steps to your front door. It is a routine we perform mindlessly. But predators are incredibly patient. They wait for the exact second your hands are full, your keys are buried in your pocket, and your back is turned to the street. On the cold night of February 20th, 2022, Allie Poreth and her two young daughters, one 13 years old and the other just a toddler, returned home from a late-night shopping trip. The security camera mounted above their garage captured the seemingly normal routine. Allie pulled her large truck into the driveway, the headlights cutting through the darkness before clicking off. She unbuckled her daughters, grabbed their heavy shopping bags, and walked casually up the front pathway. She unlocked the heavy wooden door. They all stepped inside, and she locked it firmly behind them. Their safety and survival came down to a matter of mere seconds. Just moments after the deadbolt clicked into place, a dark silhouette detached itself from the deep shadows of the driveway. A man, completely dressed in dark clothing, walked with terrifying, rapid directness straight toward the porch. He didn't look around to see if anyone was watching. He walked straight up to the front door, grabbed the handle, and yanked it violently, trying to rip the door open and force his way inside. The lock held firm. The heavy door didn't budge. Inside the brightly lit house, the family was completely oblivious to the fact that a predator was standing inches away on their welcome mat. The man lingered on the porch for a few agonizingly tense moments, his body language radiating frustration before he slowly melted back into the darkness. When Allie and the local police reviewed the neighborhood footage the next day, they discovered a truth far more terrifying than a random attempted break-in. This predator had spotted Allie and her two young daughters at the brightly lit grocery store. He had watched them walk to their car, and he had tailed them through the city streets all the way back to their home. After they went inside, the footage showed him spending the next 5 minutes actively prowling around their dark perimeter, talking on a cell phone, hunting for another way in. If Allie had taken just 30 extra seconds to gather her shopping bags, if she had dropped her keys in the dark driveway, the front door would have been wide open when that man reached the porch. The police saturated the area, but the darkness had swallowed him whole. The driveway predator was never found, leaving the family with the chilling knowledge that he is still out there, and he knows exactly where they live. There is a very specific, deeply violating type of crime that leaves a permanent psychological scar on its victims. It is the horrifying realization that while you were completely helpless, unconscious, and fast asleep in your own bed, a lethal threat was moving silently through your home. In October of 2016, a family living in Florida woke up to a confusing and frustrating morning. As they got ready for the day, they noticed that wallets, purses, car keys, and expensive electronics were completely missing from the living room and kitchen counters. There were no broken windows, no shattered glass, and no forced entry of any kind. Confused and hoping to find a simple explanation, the homeowners logged into their home security system to review the night's footage. What they saw paralyzed them with absolute dread. The video timestamp read 1:30 in the morning. The house was completely dark, illuminated only by the infrared glow of the camera. In the living room, multiple family members were fast asleep on the couches, bundled under heavy blankets, dead to the world. Suddenly, a dark figure drifted into the frame. He moved with a terrifying, calculated silence, placing his feet carefully to avoid creaking the floorboards. He walked directly up to the couches, standing mere inches away from the sleeping bodies. Leaning entirely over them, his hands hovered just above their resting faces as he smoothly and quietly slid cell phones and keys off the cushions and coffee tables. The sleeping family didn't even flinch. Their breathing remained steady, completely unaware of the intruder looming over them. But as the camera panned slightly, it revealed something infinitely more terrifying. Standing just outside the open front entryway was a second man. He was acting as the lookout, holding a bag to collect the stolen goods, but gripped tightly in his right hand, held firmly in a low-ready tactical position, was a loaded handgun. As the first thief moved among the sleeping family, the armed lookout kept his weapon pointed directly at the living room. He was completely prepared to open fire the exact second anyone woke up or made a sudden movement. The line between life and death in that room was incredibly, terrifyingly thin. A single cough, a restless shift in sleep, or the sudden opening of an eye, and the man at the door would have pulled the trigger without hesitation. The two men vanished into the Florida night and were never apprehended. The police later offered the family a grim reality check. They didn't survive because their house was secure. They survived out of pure, unadulterated luck. We constantly comfort ourselves with the stereotype that criminals belong to the fringes of society. We picture them hiding in dirty alleyways, driven by desperation or poverty. We never, ever expect them to be wearing tailored suits, driving luxury cars, or holding highly prestigious executive titles at multi-billion-dollar global corporations. In the freezing town of Hudson, Wisconsin, a local woman pulled back her bedroom blinds one snowy morning and noticed something deeply unsettling. The pristine, untouched blanket of white snow covering her yard had been ruined. Pressed deep into the powder was a clear, deliberate trail of heavy footprints. The trail led directly from the dark street, straight up to her private bedroom window. The deep indentation showed that someone had stood freezing in the dead of night, shifting their weight for a long period of time, just to watch her sleep through the glass. Terrified that she was being actively targeted, she immediately mounted a high-definition outdoor security camera, aiming it directly at her window. A few nights later, the temperature plummeted and the snow began to fall again. The camera's motion sensors triggered. Through the heavily falling snow, a man emerged from the darkness. He walked with sickening familiarity, retracing his exact steps, heading straight for his favorite spot. He stepped right up to the bedroom window, cupping his bare hands around his eyes to block out the external reflection of the snow. He pressed his face against the cold glass and peered deeply into the dark room, indulging a deeply disturbing, obsessive compulsion. She took the crystal-clear footage straight to the police. Detectives analyzed the video and cross-referenced it with municipal traffic cameras, tracking the suspect's vehicle back to a stunning, unbelievable identification. The man in the snow was Robert Cessna. He was not a transient or a troubled local. He was the global key account vice president for 3M, a massive, prestigious international corporation. He possessed immense wealth, power, and a completely spotless public reputation. When confronted by detectives, Cessna utilized his corporate confidence to flatly deny everything, claiming it was a bizarre case of mistaken identity. But the digital GPS data on his phone and the physical evidence collected from the snow formed an ironclad, inescapable case. The corporate fallout was absolutely instantaneous. The very second the news broke and the footage was verified, 3M permanently terminated his executive contract. His brilliant career, his high society lifestyle, and his reputation were instantly vaporized, all destroyed by a dark, uncontrollable compulsion that forced him out into the freezing night to prey on strangers. For the elderly, maintaining a sense of independence and dignity is fiercely protected. Margaret Woodward was a 68-year-old woman living completely alone in the quiet, historic town of Long, Eaton, England. She loved her home, but throughout the year 2013, her peaceful existence was systematically destroyed. Over the course of just a few grueling months, her home was aggressively broken into an unbelievable 5 times. Her privacy was violated, her belongings were stolen, and her sense of safety was entirely stripped away. Desperate and exhausted, she followed the advice of local police and installed a modern internal security camera directly overlooking her living room. She hoped it would act as a deterrent. Instead, it would capture the explosive climax of her torment. It was 1:00 a.m. The house was pitch black. Margaret was fast asleep in her favorite armchair, the television softly glowing in the corner of the room. Suddenly, the camera detected a subtle movement. A man stepped out from the shadows of the hallway. He moved with absolute terrifying silence, navigating the layout of the house perfectly. And he should have, because he was the exact same predator who had already robbed her 5 times before. The intruder casually strolled around the living room, passing mere inches from the sleeping elderly woman. He snatched up her purse, her electronics, and her small valuables, treating her private living room like a self-service checkout line. He believed he was going to get away with it for a 6th time, but his luck had finally expired. As he confidently walked toward the back exit with his arms full of stolen goods, his foot clipped a newly installed invisible perimeter laser. A deafening, piercing siren erupted throughout the quiet house. Margaret violently jolted awake. The sudden noise disoriented her, but as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw the unmistakable silhouette of a masked man standing in her home. But this time, something inside Margaret snapped. The lingering terror and anxiety from the 5 previous break-ins instantly evaporated. It was replaced by pure, blinding, unadulterated rage. She reached down, firmly gripped her heavy wooden walking cane, and pulled her 68-year-old frame out of the chair. She let out a furious scream that echoed through the house. Raising the heavy, solid wood cane high above her head, she charged directly at the intruder. Blindsided and completely terrified by the ferocious retaliation of the elderly woman, the burglar panicked. He dropped the stolen loot and sprinted for the door, with Margaret violently chasing him right out into the dark street, swinging her cane wildly. In his panic to escape, he made a fatal error. He looked directly up at the ceiling, and the high-definition camera captured his uncovered face perfectly. Police ran the image through their databases and immediately identified him as 51-year-old Patrick Reed, a notorious career criminal. He was quickly hunted down, arrested, and sentenced to nearly 5 years in federal prison. Margaret Woodward finally got her justice, and she proved a timeless truth. The people we perceive as the weakest, most vulnerable targets often possess a hidden, fierce strength that can terrify even the darkest predators. Our homes are designed to be our impenetrable castles. But as these horrifying pieces of footage prove, the physical walls are only as strong as the digital eyes watching over them. Lock your doors, double-check your windows, and always stay vigilant, because right now, in the dead of night, someone might be watching you.